These files were never meant to be public, but someone reopened them. This is the Dark Bureau. A hidden global network operates at the intersection of spirituality, persuasion, and power. Its channels are not built through decree or commerce, but are woven through devotion, shared narrative, and a layered scaffolding of modern organisational techniques. The movement at its core, Falun Gong, presents itself to the world with an air of calm. Slow, coordinated exercises in parks, unhurried breathing, and familial groups gathering for ritual. To the casual observer, these scenes project innocence, a gentle search for meaning, health, and moral clarity. Yet cloaked beneath this surface is a meticulously calibrated infrastructure, seamlessly blending spiritual ideals with mechanisms of surveillance and control. Each outpost, from Sydney to Stockholm, operates as both a node in this network and a sentinel. Lessons are delivered, gatherings convened, and allegiances nurtured. Yet the true machinery is neither visible nor easily mapped. Directives travel swiftly, loyalty is policed through unseen warnings and reward, and resources are pooled and deployed across borders with a discipline that belies the movement's formless, almost ethereal public image. What emerges is a striking tension between outward public harmony and an undercurrent of strict coordination. A system in which the movements of a group in one city echo the instructions and priorities of a command centre continents away. The roots of this system run back to late 20th century China, a society then roiled by economic reform, ideological vacuum, and a thirst for renewal. Falun Gong's blend of Qigong, moral precepts, and metaphysical promises proved magnetic amid social unease. As it expanded, a subtle matrix arose, at first a loose association, later a quasi-official structure built around charismatic authority and an evolving corpus of doctrine. Early adopters touted not only health benefits and peace of mind, but also a sense of belonging missing in the atomized landscape of post-Mao China. Yet this growth, organic at the start, soon faced its foremost challenge: a bifurcated relationship with a government unwilling to tolerate mass, independent mobilization outside state channels. What followed was not mere repression, but a campaign of erasure, prescription, media vilification, and relentless security state pursuit. Under pressure, Falun Gong's structure metastasized. Suppression did not annihilate the group. Instead, it forged a new organizational logic. Secrecy became paramount. New identities arose to shield old loyalties. Those at the core employed evasion, encryption, and constant adaptation. Clandestine meetings replaced open ones, digital handbooks replaced public banners, and networks once visible on street corners migrated to encrypted apps, coded language, and secret safe houses. As China's security apparatus escalated surveillance, the group learned to reroute its lines of command, using a blend of traditional secrecy and contemporary networking. The crucible of persecution welded together a hardened leadership, drilled in contingency planning and network survival, pushing the group's reach far beyond its country of origin. This global dispersion triggered the next phase, a transformation from embattled spiritual movement to a supple, transnational entity. In diaspora, Falun Gong learned to adapt its identity and methods to local context. In North America, Europe, and parts of Asia, public-facing affiliates reinvented themselves as cultural associations, language academies, human rights advocates, and news media. To the public, and often even to host governments, these entities appeared as benign non-profits or grassroots campaigns. Yet beneath this camouflage, a single doctrinal thread weaved all regional outposts together. Teachings, terminology, and internal metrics all referenced the same spiritual narratives and guiding principles. A shadow leadership monitored compliance, standardized curricula, and ensured that divergent local practice never undermined the ideological and strategic core. Within this architecture, communication protocols spoke the language of modern bureaucracy. Encrypted directives, digital reporting, rankings for loyalty and participation. Volunteers and staff advanced not by mere belief, but by visible outputs. Organising events, amplifying messages, recruiting new adherents, and demonstrating unswerving alignment with the group's stated mission. The tools for discipline were psychological as much as they were administrative. Praise, public affirmation, and expanded access for the most committed. Hushed warnings, reduced status, or sudden social exclusion for those who questioned or lagged. In some cases, spiritual condemnation or invocation of dire consequences enforced compliance with subtle yet devastating effect. The organisation thus maintained a delicate balance, combining the intimacy and zeal of a faith group with the performative rigour and resilience of a modern network corporation. The media arms of Falun Gong, most notably its international television, web publishing and print operations, were pivotal in amplifying its global reach and shaping its epistemic universe. These outlets, run by alumni of the movement and often promoted as independent, crafted a feedback loop, producing content that not only reported on world events, but framed them through the group's lens. Persecution, existential struggle, and a universal battle against moral decline. The result was a self-reinforcing reality, where official pronouncements, coverage of activism, and the experience of suppression were woven into a single narrative fabric. At the same time, these media channels provided a megaphone for diaspora advocacy and a brushfire engine for campaign organising. Coordination was maintained through cross-border editorial directives, strict vetting of contributors, and enforcement of a core vocabulary that brooked little internal debate. Finances, in parallel, became a system unto themselves. The line between spiritual offering, charitable donation, and campaign war chest was blurred, intentionally or otherwise. Fundraising was presented as an act of faith. Donors were told their money enabled spiritual salvation or protected the vulnerable. Yet behind this moral pitch, vast resources flowed to legal defence, international lobbying, and media operations. Non-profits registered in host countries provided legal shields. Small businesses and event ticketing washed money across borders. And on occasion, for-profit arms funneled profits back into core operations. These financial architectures proved highly adaptable, resilient in the face of external inquiry, but all too tempting for internal opportunism. Control was maintained through together opaque and redundant reporting systems, ensuring plausible deniability and leaving outside regulators grasping at the edges of a sprawling, coordinated system. Investigative journalists and whistleblowers, occasionally breaking through layers of security, surfaced telling details. Emails revealing command structures, bank transfers indicating money movements, internal correspondence showing how media and advocacy groups hewed closely to central directives. These leaks triggered investigations and government hearings in multiple jurisdictions. UK, Canadian and American authorities interrogated the true nature of Falun Gong's non-profits and media holdings, raising the possibility of undeclared foreign influence, hidden donor networks, and intentional obfuscation of ownership. Civil society watchdogs weighed in, issuing public warnings and drawing analogies to earlier, less technologically advanced high control groups. Investigations drew clear parallels between Falun Gong's model and broader patterns in transnational cultic organisations. Chameleon-like adaptation, internal controls for information, and ability to rapidly generate or shut down affiliated entities in response to changing legal environments. The result was a new phase of contest. The movement, now facing scrutiny not simply from the Chinese state, but from democratic institutions and media, began to mutate once again. In some countries, branches repositioned themselves as champions for religious freedom, collecting endorsements from sympathetic lawmakers and framing all critique as evidence of persecution or discrimination. In others, where suspicion grew, affiliates quietly rebranded, transferring funds and licenses to newly formed non-profits. Fronts emerged not only in advocacy, but even in local politics and business. For each crackdown, whether in the form of a media exposé, a government audit, or a legal injunction, an equally sophisticated counter arose: alternative brands, parallel organisations, and the rapid dispersal and reconstitution of leadership. This pattern of recursive resilience lent Falun Gong a flexibility absent in larger, less agile institutions, but also seeded conflict within its own ranks. As the hierarchy ballooned and the stakes grew, legal, financial and reputational, fissures appeared. Ambitious lieutenants and dissatisfied idealists sparred over the movement's direction, spawning rival factions that contested not only lines of authority, but the very meaning of authentic practice. Where once the line between spiritual conviction and organisational expediency had been blurred by necessity, now it risked vanishing altogether. Disaffected members became whistleblowers, leaking documents, testifying in court, and providing crucial context to regulators and investigative reporters. Splits were made public, often accompanied by legal challenges over control of assets and media brands. The internal struggle, once hidden, now mirrored external scrutiny, each cycle of recrimination providing its own layer of documentary evidence for authorities. Former practitioners described loss of autonomy, familial estrangement, and a psychological economy of fear designed to deter dissent and inhibit exit. The institutional response to these revelations became increasingly systematic. Tax and charity regulators, often initially overwhelmed by the movement's shape-shifting legal entities, recognised the broader risks to non-profit sector integrity and social trust. Governments introduced stricter statutes for non-profit transparency, mandating clear disclosure of donors, beneficial owners, and international affiliations. Media oversight boards increased scrutiny for networks suspected of undisclosed coordination or foreign control. Interagency task forces, drawing experience from prior confrontations with similar entities, began mapping data flows, cataloguing nested affiliates, and sharing intelligence across borders. These efforts were echoed in academic circles, which refined their conceptual models of cultic organisations, emphasising how contemporary networks defied easy definition but could be analysed as dynamic, recursive, and inherently adaptable. The social consequences extended beyond the immediate actors. Community education initiatives addressed high-control group dynamics, seeking to inoculate vulnerable populations against predatory recruitment. Non-profit sectors, mindful of reputational risk, piloted new governance protocols, deeper audits, cross-border financial disclosure, and continual review for hidden coordinated campaigns. Within affected diaspora communities, cleavages opened between aligned practitioners and those opposed to enforced orthodoxy. The very adaptability that kept Falun Gong alive and influential in hostile settings became a template for newer groups. Imitators borrowed its camouflage tactics, fundraising models, and messaging discipline for ends both benign and malign. Legal and media exposure did not bring outright collapse. Instead, Falun Gong endured, changed but unbroken, even as its public face fractured. Successor networks and competing factions adopted its playbook, exporting the mingling of faith and operational secrecy to new fields: digital advocacy, decentralised media, and cause-based fundraising. Some governments, concerned with the implications for pluralistic society, initiated public hearings and international dialogues on the nature of transnational cultic influence, drawing systemic lessons for future regulation. What these investigations revealed, above all, was a modern paradox. Movements that begin with a quest for transcendence can, under threat and opportunity, become masterful wielders of influence, exerting soft power through doctrine, media, and money. Falun Gong, in particular, emerges a demonstration of how spiritual authority, organisational prowess, and financial management could be amalgamated into a potent, borderless force. Its dual legacy is both a warning and a case study. Policymakers have responded by fortifying oversight, tightening definitions of charitable and journalistic independence, and building rapid response networks for regulatory enforcement. Yet, as history attests, resilience breeds imitation. The very assets that make high-control movements a challenge for open societies, flexibility, redundancy, and narrative discipline, are now distributed and weaponized by new actors, blurring the lines between faith, advocacy, and influence operation. The challenge, now as ever, is not merely to expose or contain such networks, but to anticipate their evolution and ensure the values of transparency, autonomy, and public accountability remain paramount on contested ground.